Hello, this is ADHD Chat, and I'm Dr. G. And this is a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist. I'm also the parent of a couple of ADHD adults. And we have been through the whole rigmarole of ADHD from not knowing what the heck it is, why are they acting that way, and so on. And now we've got a whole bunch of research under our belts and we know what's going on a little bit. I have been talking with you the last 4 sessions or so about ADHD and girls, females, women and girls, all of the above. And it's a really big, complicated area. I mean, you figure more than half of the population and are women, and they are less than half as likely to be diagnosed with ADHD as little boys and young men are. And that's a big issue. Okay. I mean, there are big differences between the way ADHD presents in males and the way it presents in females. Guys are more likely to be hyperactive, or at least combined type, which means they've still got some hyperactivity. They're more likely to be identified because they kick up more of a fuss. The little boy who thinks it's fun to tip over his desk at school or pick fights at recess or that sort of thing. Those people get noticed. Little girls and older women, for that matter, have a tendency to not be hyperactive. They have all the other symptoms pretty well represented, but they tend to be more inattentive. They tend to have the same problems with executive functioning, and a lot more problems actually with emotions, with anxiety and depression. They are way more likely to have major depression, and they are also real likely to have a lot of anxiety issues. So they are more likely, basically, they turn their distress inward, and they try to fake it. They try to present themselves as not having the problem. It's even got a different name, but it's called masking. But basically, what they're doing is trying to act like they don't have a problem in the world, and inside they are really having a whole bunch of issues. They're far more likely to turn their distress inward and have, as a result, the problems with anxiety and depression are multiplied and become more extreme. They are also a lot more likely than males to be cutters, to be the kind of people who sit there with a knife and saw on their arm or their leg all the time. I've had a few of these as patients, and they always talk about how they feel better when they're doing it. They feel like there's actually a release of some sort of tension. But that's a big issue, and that can cause some significant and serious problems. Females tend to have more problems when they don't do as well as they would like. They want to be Little Miss Perfect, and they have problems because, the executive function problems that are commonly associated with ADHD, it's pretty much the same for males or females. They have troubles, well, first of all, managing attention. The attention goes all over the place. And they also have difficulties with what's called working memory. Working memory is, I usually call it like etch-a-sketch memory. You're just trying to remember something until you get the job done, and you don't really care after that. You're not trying to remember it forever. It's one of those things like the teacher says, turn to page 43 in your books, get your books out and turn it to page 43. They may get the book, but they probably don't remember page 43. And you think about as they mature and become adults and take jobs, bosses don't write everything they want you to do down typically. They say, hey, I want you to go do this and 3 of those and 4 of this. And if you haven't prepared yourself to deal with your working memory problems by like always having some kind of a note taker around, you'll have problems. You won't get the thing done. And in the home as a parent, if you don't recognize the working memory issues, you'll say, "Okay, I want you to go upstairs. I want you to put your clean clothes away, pick up your dirty clothes and put them in the hamper, and put your toys away." And you come upstairs a half hour later, and they've done one of those things, and they're just sitting there probably on their computer or iPad or whatever they've got, playing, and they're very surprised that you're upset. That's working memory. It just disappeared. They got one thing done, maybe, and maybe not even that. Maybe it's just that inattention thing grabbed them, and oh look, my iPad. Oh, and they never did any of it. But that's a working memory problem. That's an executive function problem. It's not willfulness. And as ADHD parents, that's one of the big things you have to recognize and hold on to. It's not willful. It's not poor behavior. It's not that they're trying to show that you can't boss them around. It's that their brain doesn't work in a neurotypical fashion. So they lose stuff. They are constantly paying attention to stuff that doesn't matter or doesn't matter to what we normally think is important. Oh, look, a leaf. Oh, look, a butterfly. Oh, look, if you have a young kid, they'll be doing that all the time. If little boys, it's the same thing. They have the same problem, like you don't want to ever put your son out in right field on a baseball team because he'll be looking at the butterflies and caterpillars on worms on the ground and not paying attention to the ball that's been hit to him. Little girls, same thing, inattention. Another thing that is frequently not recognized by folks is that ADHDers have a lousy sense of time passage. They have no idea if they worked on something for 10 minutes or 10 hours. It just goes away. And can be an issue, I mean, when they're hyper focusing, you don't, and it's doing something, they work on a paper if they're kids in school, or they work on a project if they're at work. Nobody worries about it if they spend 10 hours doing it. But when they're kids and you've only got so much time for this before this has to get done, and they don't have any sense that a lot of time has gone by, that'll be an issue. And then we go procrastination. I spent a little time talking about that recently. Actually, that's in my newsletter, which, by the way, you ought to sign up for. I'm not going to be talking about the same topics I talk about on this show. It's going to be different topics, but it'll be some solid information, and it'll be relatively brief, and I will actually write it. It won't be ChatGPT doing it. And yeah, I just started it, so it's not like you've missed a great deal. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is, well, emotionality. I mean, that's a huge problem with ADHDers, and little boys have a tendency to let it out, if they're, temper tantrums are usually the biggest complaint I have from parents of little boys. Little girls, not so much. Not well, till they get about 12 or 13, then sometimes we have some, but generally when they're younger, uh, the emotions being out of control and being prominent so everybody knows it, nah, they just get real quiet and or they get real anxious, they don't wanna leave the house, they don't wanna come out of their room, they wanna, stay safe and all that sort of thing. And that's, uh, there's also some problems with social awkwardness frequently. You're not paying attention, you're missing stuff, you're not sure what's going on. It makes you a little bit different than the other kids. And so that's a huge, huge issue. And the other, one other thing is that some, not all, but some little girls particularly are hypersensitive in the sense of they feel labels, they feel scratchy fabrics, they feel their sheets have to be just so on their beds. It's and some of it goes to so far as to be the mouth feel of certain kinds of food. Ew, I'm not going to eat that. That feels bad. It's like, oh, but it tastes pretty good, doesn't it? No, that doesn't matter. So that's a huge, huge issue for parents. When you've got to produce specific meals for certain people that are different from everybody else's meals, or you have to change everybody else's meals to fit that. Okay, and that's just that's mostly little girls. Then we get to be young ladies, and the whole menstrual cycle thing kicks in. And the deal is estrogen, when it's up, dopamine is up. When both of those are up, you're happy. Your brain is functioning as close to neurotypical as it's going to get. Uh, but through the cycle, as estrogen goes down, uh, dreaded third week, your ADHD symptoms just jack up, go way up, and you're having huge problems. Just when you're thinking you got it under control, or just when mom and dad think everything's under control, it gets really bad. And well, it is one of those things you're going to really have to get used to because there are, well, some stimulant medications change it somewhat. Some other kinds of medical interventions will change that a little bit to make it a little less severe. Uh, that's not my area of expertise, so I'll just, leave it at that. But you've got kids, so what you've got, and I'm a guy, right? I was born a long time ago, and I have lived thinking that, oh, there's not that much difference, between male privileges and female privileges. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I I was talking with my wife, and she was saying that when we got married, she couldn't take out a loan in her own name. She couldn't like buy a house in her own name. It's like, I, if you knew my wife, you knew she's a pretty independent lady, and that just floored me. I mean, I just really that that would, and this was a while ago, but it wasn't 100 years ago. It's not. But girls have a burden of expectation. That people expect a certain kind of behavior out of them and out of girls, and they expect a certain uh, tendency to nurture. Well, that's part of that is neurotransmitter hormonal stuff that does tend to make women more likely to tend and befriend, as the saying goes. Um, but the role expectations are pretty sharp and pretty hard to uh, avoid, I guess would be the way to say it. That we don't, guys just kind of, "Oh, well, whatever, do." And girls have a lot more complicated role expectations that they have to deal with. And on top of that, you throw in ADHD, which means you're having a lot of trouble in this. And, the way this society is set up, it is set up for neurotypicals. It is set up for people who sit quietly, take notes, and give the information back to you when you ask for it. And they do stuff because it's important, because they're told it's important. Not necessarily that they believe it, but they're told it's important, so they do it. ADHD kids have troubles with that kind of stuff. Little boys and little girls. It's more like if they're interested in it, it gets done. If they're not interested, does not get done, or it is a solid bear to get it done. And our whole school system has not really advanced as much as it should, and we don't have much individuality that we're concerned about. It's trying to get them out so they can get a job, or get them out so that they're well enough educated that they can go to college, and da 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 da. And obviously, we haven't done the best job we possibly could. Some of the things that the current level of education have not prepared people for just amaze and astound me continuously. And I'm not going to start talking politics, but there's reasons. And the issue, though, for girls is more complicated than for little boys, because the expectations are way different and way stricter. And so that, if you can't measure up to those things, or you have troubles meeting those requirements, a lot of times it's turned inward. It's turned into more anxiety, more depression, that sort of thing. So we've got a lot of work to do, people, and we've got to make our society so that ADHDers have got a better shot, shall we say. It can't all be about obedience and taking orders well. It just can't. Okay, that is as much as I've got for today. Got a couple of things, notices, and I already talked a little bit about the newsletter. Uh, just just got that started. I think there are 2 issues out now, or maybe we had a little trouble getting it published. Uh, as you may have heard once or twice, I am not the most technologically gifted individual. I still have my Smith Corona. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a portable typewriter. I had it when I went to college, and I've still got it. I wrote my dissertation on it, so there. But the deal you've got to have with ADHD, it's got to get better for ADHD people, for ADHD kids. I still get people telling me that, well, if people were just better parents, we wouldn't have all this trouble with these kids. And that is total baloney. ADHD kids don't act the way they act because they are rebellious, or, well, they don't start out rebellious. I'm not saying that by the time they've had difficulties in school for 8 or 9 years, that they aren't a little rebellious, but that's not the primary problem. It's not a behavior problem, as I keep saying week after week. It is a problem, a neurologic condition characterized by difficulties with neurotransmitters, which are the little things that allow your nerves to communicate with each other. And they have the same issues with boys and girls. Girls have even stricter requirements on their behavior, and therefore the emotional stuff is a lot stronger. I firmly believe in girls than it is in boys. Okay, so that was a wander off of telling you about my newsletter, but it was one of the first topics on it. So then, anyway, the newsletter, I'm hopeful that some of you out there would rather read stuff than listen to a tape or listen to a video or um, just would rather reading. I mean, I'm a big reader. I love reading, um, but uh, some of you are more likely to want that. So fine, this is for you. But everybody can look at it, and I'll announce some things first on there, depending on what the schedule of the show is here. So there's that. My website is terrygingrassphd.com. You can sign up. You can sign up for the newsletter there. You can sign up for my group. I'm starting to get a little aggressive here, and I'll be doing some membership things and some webinar things. By the way, if you would like, I'd appreciate it if you send me an email or whatever, and let me know about anything you'd like me to cover, any programs you'd like to see. Um, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm now, trying to bring, the knowledge and experience that I've developed over a number of decades, and help other people so that they don't have to do the struggling that my wife and I did with dealing with our ADHD kids and not knowing what the heck was going on. And anyway, I still shudder thinking about those days. So we will catch you next time. Like I said, drop me a line, let me know anything you'd like me to start talking about, and we'll catch you next time.